What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video. And today we are going over something super interesting, and it is 10 actors you may have not known that played in both DC and Marvel movies. Let's get right on the list with number 10, Chris Evans. As you go down memory lane and look back at all the DC movies you've watched so far, you're probably asking yourself, since when was Chris Evans ever a part of the DC universe? He gained so much star power after he played Captain America, so if he was a superhero in the DC universe, you would already know by now, right? Nope. Most people forget that DC has published many comic books that aren't related to superheroes, such as Preacher, Lucifer, iZombie, and Y: The Last Man. In 1993, DC created Vertigo so the writers would be able to publish stories with mature content that doesn't have to fit within the restrictions of the Comics Code Authority, thus allowing more creative freedom than DC's main imprints. An example of a comic book that has its own movie and was published under Vertigo is Losers, which featured none other than Chris Evans. He has quite the comic book resume because he went from being the Human Torch in Fantastic Four to William Jensen in The Losers, and then to Captain America in the MCU. Sure, Fantastic Four and The Losers were complete flops, but every character he played led him to landing the biggest role in his career as Captain America. Number 9, Natalie Portman. Similar to the Evans situation, many people forget that Natalie Portman played a DC character because V for Vendetta has no ties with the superhero universe that was established with Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. As Evie, Portman was able to showcase her acting abilities because the character not only dealt with the trauma of being imprisoned, but she also had to stand up against a totalitarian government. Unfortunately, Portman wasn't as lucky as Evans because she downgraded when she went from the DC universe to the Marvel universe. With an actress as talented as Portman, you would expect Marvel to give her a substantial role, but instead she was just seen as Thor's love interest. It was kind of disappointing. In the comics, Jane Foster was worthy of taking the mantle of Thor and wielding the Mjolnir, which may come across as a surprise because she was just a bland character in the movies. Many people found her performance as Jane so boring that they were perfectly fine with Thor Ragnarok providing a weak explanation as to why she decided to break up with Thor. If you're only familiar with her work from the Thor movies, you would have never guessed that she won an Academy Award for Best Actress. Number 8, J.K. Simmons. Nothing can prevent fans from arguing who's the best Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, or Tom Holland. But if there's one thing they can all agree on, it's that J.K. Simmons was the perfect J. Jonah Jameson. Right from his first scene, it was clear that Simmons was practically born to play this role. He embodied the character the same way Robert Downey Jr. embodied Iron Man and Hugh Jackman embodied Wolverine. There have been rumors swirling around that Jameson will make his MCU debut in Spider-Man Far From Home, and all I have to say is good luck to the next actor who plays him because the expectations are insanely high. J.K. Simmons' accurate depiction of Jameson left a major impact in the Marvel universe, which is why it's so disappointing that he wasn't given enough screen time as Jim Gordon to have a memorable performance in the DC universe. Since Justice League was an epic failure, most people didn't get the chance to see him as Gordon, but they didn't miss out on much because he was only in 2 scenes. We'll probably never know whether he would have made a good Gordon because most fans are assuming that the role is going to be a recast, especially since Ben Affleck is no longer Batman. Number 7, Halle Berry. Before the success of Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel, fans had to sit through a Catwoman movie which was so terrible that Berry even showed up to the Razzies to accept her Worst Actress award. Her performance may have been incredible in Monsters Ball, but she's one of those actors who can shine bright only when given a well-written script. The Catwoman writers clearly didn't care about the source material and only wanted to create a movie about a character who is known for embracing her sexiness so they could draw in some male audience. They used that bait, alright? The main problem with the movie is that it felt nothing like Catwoman. Instead of Selena Kyle, we got Patience Phillips, a timid graphic designer caught up in a corporate conspiracy. After Patience died, she got resurrected by the goddess Bast, breathing into her mouth via a cat. Like, who wrote this shit? Fortunately, Berry accepting the role of Catwoman was not career suicide because she managed to move forward and even found herself in a few successful movies, including the X-Men franchise. Despite having better material to work with in the Marvel Universe than the DC Universe, Berry never reached her full potential as Storm because the X-Men movies were more focused on characters such as Professor X, Magneto, and Wolverine. Number 6, Tom Hardy. Remember when people thought that Guardians of the Galaxy was going to fail because people weren't familiar with the characters, but then it exceeded expectations by almost reaching $800 million? Well, Venom shares a similar story because no one expected it to become a box office hit. A huge portion of Venom's success can be attributed to the way it was marketed around the star power of Tom Hardy, because there's no way anyone would miss out the opportunity of seeing him play one of Spider-Man's most iconic villains. Venom embraced its own ridiculousness, and Hardy threw himself wholeheartedly into the role, even giving fans a brilliant improvised scene where Eddie climbed into a lobster tank at a fancy restaurant to cool down and started eating live lobsters. Yeah, the movie wasn't even close to perfect, but come on, how could you hate on it after seeing that scene? Seriously. Years before Hardy delivered a hilarious performance as Venom, he played a villain in the DC Universe, although it may have been difficult to tell because his face was covered throughout the entire movie. In Batman: The Dark Knight Rises, Hardy did a phenomenal job at portraying a walking killing machine known as Bane, even though that fans can argue that he wasn't comic book accurate. Hardy was given the difficult task of acting entirely through his eyes to show emotions, and he still knocked it out of the park. As for which role was better, I don't think it's possible to choose between a crazy Eddie Brock and a fearsome Bane. Number 5, Josh Brolin. I know we all like to pretend that the Jonah Hex movie doesn't exist because it's just a complete disaster, but sorry guys, I'm gonna have to bring it back for the sake of this video. DC took a risk when they decided to make a movie about the bounty hunter Jonah Hex, and it didn't pay off in the end because they only brought in $11 million worldwide with a $47 million budget. How do you mess up this bad when you have somebody as talented as Josh Brolin playing the lead role? Brolin absolutely hated the experience of filming the movie because the studio forced the cast and crew to get so much done in such little time. I don't think anyone would have blamed him if he decided to retire from comic book movies, but thankfully, he didn't allow one bad experience to prevent him from joining the Marvel Universe. Not only did Brolin do a fantastic job as Cable in Deadpool 2, but he also gave a stellar performance as Thanos in Infinity War and Endgame. We have to give Brolin props because not many actors are capable of making a CGI character like Thanos feel so human. Just imagine going from Jonah Hex, an anti-hero who is fairly unknown to the general audience, to Thanos, a villain who is compared to iconic characters such as Darth Vader and Voldemort. That right there has to be the ultimate glow up, and we congratulate Josh with all of our heart over here at the official LifeX team. Number 4, Idris Elba. I wouldn't be surprised if people outside of the comic book world didn't know that Idris Elba was a part of the MCU because he never had a prominent role in the Thor movies. No, his portrayal of Heimdall wasn't terrible, but it does make you wonder why an actor so talented and charismatic as Elba was given such a minor role. Nothing is wrong with being a supporting character. As a matter of fact, there are times when the supporting character is more loved than the main character, but the Thor movies failed at making fans care about Heimdall the same way they failed at making Jane Foster likable. When Heimdall died in Avengers Infinity War, most people probably didn't even shed a tear because they either had no idea who he was or simply didn't have an emotional connection to him. In 2010, he was in the DC movies The Losers and played a significant role as Captain Louis Roque, which sounds great until you realize that it was a bad movie. Man, Elba just can't catch a break. On the bright side, he's rumored to be in the Suicide Squad sequel, but his role remains a mystery. Some people are expecting him to be Deadshot or Deathstroke. Also, there's a possibility that Elba will be a sportsmaster because according to the rumors, his character will have a daughter. Number 3, Zachary Levi. Well, Idris Elba's role as Heimdall doesn't sound that small when you compare it to the role Zachary Levi had in Thor: The Dark World and Thor: Ragnarok. Many people probably don't even know this because Levi looked like a completely different person when he was in the Thor movies, but he became Fandral after Josh Dallas stepped out of the MCU due to contract issues. Levi was extremely disappointed because he felt like the Three Warriors, a group of Asgardian warriors who were close to Thor ever since his youth, could have been very fun characters to play if Marvel took more time to develop them. It's not surprising that Levi was glad when his characters died in Thor Ragnarok, because he didn't want to spend an extra year with a Marvel contract if it only meant that he was going to die in Infinity War. Plus, the timing worked out in the end because if his character didn't die in Ragnarok, he would have never been able to cut a deal with DC. Levi said that being a part of the DC universe was way more fun than being part of the MCU, but that's probably because he had the opportunity to play a 14-year-old character in an adult superhero body. I don't know about you guys, but portraying a superhero who represents every kid's dream of becoming Superman definitely sounds more interesting than portraying an irrelevant character in the Thor movies. That's just my hot take, but it's not that hot because everyone else would probably agree. Number 2, Ben Affleck. When Heath Ledger was casted as the Joker, many people immediately rushed to their computers and started writing a 10-page paper explaining why he's a terrible choice before they even got the chance to see him on the big screen. Of course, he ended up proving them wrong in the end, which is exactly what Ben Affleck did when he took the role of Batman. Zack Snyder may have caused an uproar when he created Batman vs Superman, but most people who hated that movie agree that Ben Affleck's performance as Batman was the highlight. Part of the reason why people were questioning whether Affleck would make a good Batman was because they remembered what happened the last time he was in a superhero movie. Before he joined the DC universe and went toe-to-toe with the Man of Steel in BVS, Affleck starred as Matt Murdock in Marvel's 2003 movie Daredevil. To be fair, Affleck wasn't the worst part of Daredevil, and Charlie Cox even thought that he did a fantastic job at portraying the character, but it's just hard to take that movie seriously, especially after watching the Netflix show. Ben actually stated that one of the reasons why he agreed to play Batman was because he wanted to seek forgiveness from fans for messing up one of their favorite superheroes. Little did he know that people were going to start hating on BVS just as much as they hated Daredevil, but at least Affleck's performance as Batman was stronger than his performance as Daredevil. Some honorable mentions are Michael Fassbender, who played Burke in Jonah Hex and Magneto in X-Men movies, William Dafoe, who played Green Goblin in Spider-Man and Vulko in Aquaman, Michael Keaton, who played Batman in the 1989 movie and Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, Michelle Pfeiffer, who played Catwoman in Batman Returns and Janet Van Dyne in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Chris Pine, who played Steve Trevor in Wonder Woman and voiced the Ultimate Spider-Man in Into the Spider-Verse. And with number 1, we have Ryan Reynolds. He was so passionate about Deadpool that he was willing to spend 10 years trying to convince Fox that going through with a solo movie would be a brilliant idea. Fox was only hesitant to make the movie because they weren't sure how people would react to an R-rated film about an anti-hero who is known for breaking the fourth wall and mocking superheroes. Also, the horrendous version of Deadpool that first appeared on the big screen in X-Men Origins Wolverine made Fox believe that the character wasn't good enough to have its own movie. Since Fox refused to make a Deadpool movie, Reynolds decided to head to the DC universe so he could star as Green Lantern. At the time, he didn't know that people were going to hate the Green Lantern movie way more than they hated his first appearance as Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds even admitted that he never watched a completed version of the Green Lantern movie, but I don't blame him because he probably didn't want to spend 2 hours watching himself in a ridiculous CGI suit. Thankfully, Reynolds was able to move on from Green Lantern when Fox finally gave him the chance to prove that Deadpool is capable of leading his own movie. The main reason why Deadpool did so well is because his wit, charisma, and sarcasm blends perfect with Ryan Reynolds' personality. Deadpool and Reynolds are literally a match made in Marvel heaven. And that is it for the video, guys. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. Follow me on Twitter at Valenplana, and I'll see you all in my next video.